For 3 months, I never saw my neighbor in daylight, not even once. And I work from home. I'm there all day, every day. I hear everything in that building. The couple above me arguing, the dog on the third floor, the guy across the hall who microwaves fish at 11 in the morning. I know my building's rhythms better than I know most people. But apartment 7? Never. Not once in 3 months did I see whoever lived there during daylight hours. I told myself it was nothing, shift worker maybe, someone who slept days and lived nights, completely normal. I almost believed that. My name is James, I'm 29. At the time this happened, I was freelancing, graphic design, mostly remote work, which meant my apartment was essentially my office. I moved into Birchfield Court in the spring, ground floor of a 4 story building, decent rent for the area, nothing remarkable about it. My apartment is number 6. Apartment 7 is directly across the hallway, maybe 8 feet from my door to theirs. When I moved in, the building manager, a woman named Sandra who communicated exclusively through notes, slid under doors, mentioned that apartment 7 had been occupied for about a year. Single tenant, quiet. No complaints, I didn't think much about it. Quiet neighbor across a narrow hall sounded ideal. The first time I noticed something was about 3 weeks after I moved in. It was late, maybe 1 a.m., and I was still working deadline the next morning. I got up to make coffee, and as I passed my front door, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Not unusual. Building has 12 units, people come and go, but something made me look through the peephole. The hallway was dim. The motion sensor light had already clicked off, so it was just the faint emergency lighting at either end. And in that low light, I could see a figure walking toward the stairwell. Slow, unhurried steps, dark jacket, dark trousers. I head slightly forward. They paused at the stairwell door. Just for a second, then pushed through and were gone. I stood there at my peephole for a moment after. I don't know why. There was nothing alarming about what I'd seen. Just a person walking to the stairs. But I hadn't heard apartment 7's door open, and they'd come from that direction. I went back to work, forgot about it by morning. It happened again 4 nights later. Different time, closer to 2 a.m., same thing. Footsteps, the dim hallway, the same dark jacket and trousers, the same slow walk to the stairwell, same brief pause at the door. This time I watched until they were fully gone, then checked my phone. 2000 AME. I started noticing the pattern, the way you notice things you didn't mean to track. Not deliberately, just accumulating. Over the next few weeks, every time I happened to be awake late and heard movement in the hall, it was the same figure, same clothes, same pace, always between midnight and 4. And during the day, nothing, not once. I work by my front window. I hear every door in this building. The couple upstairs leave at 8:40 every morning. The fish microwave guy leaves at noon, back by 6. The woman in apartment 3 gets a delivery almost every Tuesday. Apartment 7's door, silence, all day, every day. I told my friend Dara about it when she came over for dinner one evening. She laughed, not unkindly, and said maybe they were a night security guard or a hospital worker. Graveyard shift. Made perfect sense. I nodded. It did make sense, but I didn't explain the part that was bothering me. The part I hadn't quite admitted to myself yet. It wasn't just that they only came out at night. It was that they always came back. Every night I'd observe, which I want to be clear, wasn't a habit I chose, more something I fell into. They'd leave somewhere between midnight and 2 a.m. and return between 3 and 4. Always the same window. And when they came back, I never heard a sound. Not the door, not footsteps approaching. Just at some point between checking and not checking, they were back. Like the return trip happened in a gap I couldn't account for. About 6 weeks in, I decided to get a look at the face. Not aggressively, I just wanted to know who I was living across from. Reasonable thing. So one night around 1 a.m., when I heard the footsteps start, I waited a few seconds and then opened my own door, casual as I could, like I was just stepping out to check the post shelf. The hallway was empty. Not a slow empty, the kind where someone just left and you can feel the air still settling. Immediately empty. I'd waited maybe 4 seconds after hearing the footsteps before opening my door. 4 seconds is not enough time to reach the stairwell from apartment 7's door. I stood in the hallway and looked both ways. Nothing. I went back inside. I didn't try that again for a while. Instead, I started paying attention to different details. Small things. Like the fact that I'd never once heard a sound from apartment 7 that suggested someone was living there. No television, no music, no shower running in the morning, no cooking smells, no voices, no movement during the hours that I was awake and working 10 feet away. Some people are very quiet, I know that. But there's a difference between quiet and absent, and apartment 7 felt absent, all day, every day, a space that no one was using until midnight. Then the smell started. I don't know how to describe it precisely. Not a rotting smell, nothing that direct, more like something old, something that had been in an enclosed space for a very long time, musty but with something underneath it, something that didn't quite belong in a residential building. It started coming under my door around 11:00 am on a Tuesday. Faint at first, I thought maybe it was the building's ventilation, old ductwork, something like that. But it got marginally stronger as midnight approached. And then at some point after 2 a.m., it was gone. This happened 4 nights in a row. On the fifth night, I sat at my door and tracked it precisely. First noticed it at 11:42 p.m. It intensified slowly until about 12:03, then stayed at the same level until 3:15 a.m., at which point it disappeared inside about 20 minutes. Whatever was causing it operated on the same schedule as my neighbor. That was the point where the rational part of my brain started losing ground to the other part, the quieter part, the part that doesn't care about explanations. I emailed Sandra, the building manager, and reported an unusual smell in the hallway, possibly from a neighboring unit. She sent a maintenance person around 2 days later. He checked the hallway, checked the ventilation access panel near the stairwell, found nothing. Said it was probably someone cooking something strong. I didn't push it, but that wasn't the worst part. But about 2 months in, I had a friend staying over. Marcus visiting for a long weekend. He took the couch. First night he was there, around 1:03 am. I heard the footsteps and almost said something. Then decided not to. Didn't want to explain the whole thing. Didn't want to sound like what I knew I'd sound like. In the morning, Marcus asked me over coffee, "Who's your neighbor across the hall?" I looked at him. "Why?" "Saw someone going into that apartment last night when I got up to use the bathroom." He stirred his coffee. "Around half one. Couldn't sleep." "What did they look like?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Marcus thought about it. Couldn't really see properly. Hallway was dark, but dark coat, yeah? And they were just standing outside the door for a bit before going in. He paused. That was the odd part, actually. They were just standing there, not like they were getting keys out or anything, just standing. "For how long?" I asked. He shrugged. "I only saw maybe 10 seconds of it before I went back to the couch. Could have been longer before I noticed." Standing outside the door, not unlocking it, just standing. I turned that over for the rest of the day. I decided to look up the tenancy. Not illegally, just publicly available information, council records, that kind of thing. I found that Birchfield Court Apartment 7 had a registered occupant, name on the council tax register, R. Hale, no other information, not the kind of name that leads anywhere. I did find one thing, though, entirely by accident. Looking at old local news archives for an unrelated reason, I came across a brief article from 8 years ago. A welfare check at Birchfield Court, Apartment 7. A tenant had apparently not been seen by neighbors for several weeks. The council had done a check. The article was 3 sentences. It said the welfare check had been inconclusive. The apartment appeared occupied, but the tenant was not found on the premises. The name of the tenant in the article, R. Hale. I sat with that for a long time. The same name. 8 years ago. Welfare check, tenant not found. And then, presumably, life continued because someone was clearly living there now. Maybe the same person moved back in. Maybe a relative with the same initial. Maybe a coincidence of records. Maybe I'd like to say that after that I did something sensible. That I called someone, or moved, or simply knocked on the door and introduced myself and found a completely ordinary person standing on the other side. I didn't do any of those things. What I did was set an alarm for 3:45 am on a Friday night. Positioned myself at the peephole and waited. The hallway was quiet. The motion sensor light had clicked off. Just the emergency strip at the far end. At 4:02 am, I heard the stairwell door, footsteps in the hall, and then they came into view. Dark jacket, dark trousers. The same outfit exactly as every other time, moving slowly down the hallway toward apartment 7. But this time I was close enough. The peephole gives you maybe a 60-degree view, and they were walking directly toward me before turning to their door. And I got a look at the face. I don't know what I expected. Something that would confirm my fear or dissolve it. What I saw was a man. Ordinary, 50s maybe, pale, but that could be the lighting, looking straight ahead as he walked, not at my door, not at the peephole, straight ahead. He stopped outside apartment 7, stood there, just as Marcus had described, still, not reaching for keys, not doing anything, and then slowly he turned his head and looked directly at my peephole. I didn't move, couldn't. He looked at it the way you look at something you've known about for a long time. Not surprised, not aggressive, patient. He stood there looking at the peephole for what I would estimate was 30 seconds but felt significantly longer. Then he turned back to the door, and without any visible action, no key, no handle turn that I could see, the door opened and he went inside. I moved out 8 weeks later. Lease break, cost me money. Told the letting agency it was a job relocation. I found a ground floor flat in a different part of the city. Checked the neighboring units carefully before signing. In the daytime, I think about the article sometimes. 8 years ago, welfare check, tenant not found. And I think about the name, R. Hale, sitting on a council tax register for a decade, consistent, paid, uninterrupted. Someone has been in that apartment for at least 8 years. Someone who doesn't exist in the daytime. Someone who knows when they're being watched. I looked up Birchfield Court recently. Just the listing. It came up when I was browsing rentals for a friend who's moving. Apartment 7 is available. Sandra's note at the bottom of the listing says the previous tenant vacated quietly. No issues. Apartment in good condition. Good condition. If you're looking for a flat in that part of the city, it's reasonably priced. Quiet building. Good transport links. Just make sure you check who's across the hall and maybe don't work late.